Good morning, City Point Church. So glad that you could join us for the live stream this morning. Hey, happy Flag Day. We have a special sermon for you today, but before that, let's worship together. So turn up the volume and sing.
Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus, as the heavens cry, let the earth respond. All creation shouts with a voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. He shall reign forever, strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender, He is Lord and He has overcome. He shall reign forever, strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus our defender, He is Lord and He has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome.
Blessing, honor, strength, and power, yours alone now and forever. The love this world could never stop. There is no one like our God, reaching down to touch the broken, mercy breaking through this moment.
I'll follow where your spirit leads. Broken as my life may be, I will give you every piece. I hear you call. I am available. I say, yes, Lord. I am available. Here I am with open hands, counting on your grace again. Less of me and more of you. I just wanna see you move. I hear you call. I am available. I say, yes, Lord. I am available. I hear you call. I am available. I say, yes, Lord. I am Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it For the one who gave me life, nothing is a sacrifice. Use me how you want to, God. Have your throne within my heart. I hear you call. I am available.
going to take a quick 3-minute intermission. So use the restroom, grab some coffee, drop down in the comments below. I've really noticed these last few days, it has felt like summer. So let us know how you are enjoying this weather.
Good morning. Well, it's Flag Day. In 1777, on June the 14th, the Continental Congress adopted the Stars and Stripes as our national flag of the United States of America. In 1916, President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation establishing June 14th as National Flag Day. And then through the decades, it became the second Sunday in June. So, happy Flag Day, everybody. Flags, banners, standards, they have long been used by the military, moving troops, assembling companies, giving commands to charge or retreat. A flag or banner has been used and is still used to incite courage, to honor fallen heroes. A flag or banner or standard dates back to ancient times. In fact, look at this statement recorded in a document written a millennium and a half ago before the birth of Christ. The Israelites are to camp around the tent of meeting some distance from it, each of them under their standard and holding the banners of their family. So just like our different states and countries have different flags and banners, so did each of the 12 tribes of Israel. A banner or flag could be used for instructions, but it could also give a sense of identity. It pointed to something bigger than the individual, while it reminded the individual that he was a part of something, that they were needed, they were wanted, that it involved a belonging, a citizenship, a membership. In fact, this is such a significant symbol that God Himself chose to use the Hebrew word for banner, nisi, as one of the names describing Himself. At times, He wanted His own people to call Him the Lord our banner, Yahweh Nisi. The first time we think that this name was used was when God was using Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and through the wilderness into the land that God had promised to give them. It's a great story recorded in the Jewish history book of Exodus. An enemy of Israel, the Amalekites, had ruthlessly attacked, and Moses summoned Joshua to choose some men to defend against this attack. And this is where the story gets kind of interesting. When Joshua and his men went down into the valley to fight, Moses took two of his trusted friends, his brother Aaron and another friend named Hur, took them to the top of a hill overlooking the battle that was being waged below. But most importantly, Moses held in his hands the staff God gave him before the journey out of Egypt ever even began. That's the same staff that God would tell Moses to throw down and it turned into a snake, and then He'd said, grab the tail, and it turned back into his staff. The same staff that God told Moses to touch the Nile River and all of the waters in Egypt became blood. The same staff that Moses would hold over the Red Sea, you remember, and the waters parted and the people walked through on dry land. This staff had tremendous symbolism and meaning. It was no less than the staff of God. And as long as Moses held the staff of God up, his arms raised, why the Israelites would push the Amalekites back and gain the advantage in the battle. But as Moses' arms grew tired, the staff would lower, it would be noticeable that the Amalekite army would begin winning. So Aaron and Hur got an idea. They found a stone for Moses to sit on, and then each one of them took one of Moses' arms, one on one side, one on the other, and they made sure Moses' arms remained steady and up until the sun set, when the Amalekite army was completely defeated. After the battle was over, God told Moses to write down what had happened and to make sure that Joshua saw what he had written down. Because you see, Joshua was in the fight, and it might occur to him that he was responsible for the victory. God didn't want that to happen. So Moses built an altar and called it Yahweh Nisi. The Lord is my banner. Why? Exodus 17:16. Because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord The Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. It's almost as though God is saying through Moses, Joshua, you and your men were victorious because hands were being lifted up to the throne of God, holding on to the staff of God. The Lord was the one at war against the enemy. The Lord our God, He is our banner. Great story. The flag, the banner, was not the source of power, but it pointed to the power source. Joshua and his men had at their disposal the very power of God. And as long as God is our banner, as long as He is lifted up, deliverance is ever available. So, a couple of takeaways from this story. Number one, banner deliverance can at times be a process. Now, I know the cross of Christ won the war over sin and death, but the daily battles, they still ensue. Our eternal deliverance has happened, yes. Our daily deliverances are ever happening. They are in process. Fighting the same battles day after day against things like uncontrollable anger, paralyzing fear, selfish pride. These battles get old and tiresome. And it's important to remember that we are all a work in progress. A bigger story is being written. One preacher put it this way, look at this. Dryness is where God takes us to teach us that He is the only one who can supply our every need. Disappointment is where God takes us to teach us that nothing in this world can satisfy. I wonder, none of us enjoy times of dryness and disappointment, but I wonder if the next time we're going through that, or if you're going through it even right now, that we could step back for just a moment and realize, okay, a bigger story is being written here. A story in which the banner of God, the Lord Jesus Himself, is wanting to be seen, is wanting to be known as the source of power, the one who will deliver. Eternal deliverance has happened, yes. Daily deliverances, they are ever happening. They are forever in process until we see Him face to face. That's one takeaway. Takeaway number two, this banner waving is meant to be a community activity. Joshua was to get some men to go with him. Moses took at his side 2 companions. Banner focus and banner waving is a community activity. It's part of our design. And maybe that's one reason we're all anxious for our in-person gatherings to resume. That's also why FaceTiming and open-air small gatherings are so important right now. When you go golf with one another, take time either before the round starts or after the round ends to gather at your rig and have a moment of prayer. When you take that hike in the woods, pull off the trail for a second and talk to God together as a small group. When you're meeting in the park at that table underneath the shade of a tree, take a moment. Thank God for His presence. In your smaller gatherings, include a time of banner waving. Give encouragement. Point to things above. Give hope. Remind one another of His promises. Raise a banner for one another in community. Another takeaway. Banner raising is to be remembered. Times of deliverance are not to be forgotten. Some of your marriages have weathered some tough storms. That needs to be talked about again and again. Rebellion that has turned to repentance needs to be mentioned over and over. Times of brokenness and humility need to be held up and admired. When God comes through, it should be remembered, and remembered often. Meditate on passages like Psalm 60, verse 4. But you have provided a flag to show us your faithful to show your faithful followers where to gather to escape the enemy's attack. Passages like 20, verse 5, Psalms. May we shout for joy when we hear of your victory and raise a victory banner in the name of our God. May the Lord answer all your prayers. Passages like the Song of Songs, chapter 2 and verse 4. Let him lead me to the banquet hall, and let his banner over me be love. You guys, when we stop and consider what the Lord has done and what he is currently doing, there is a realization that is so empowering in that. It can give us so much strength. The kind of strength that helps us hang on even when we've come to the end of our rope. Even when the storm is at its fiercest. There's a great story that Clarence J. Forsberg tells about a little fishing village up on the New England coast. One winter's day, a storm came up suddenly and the boats were at sea. The men were rowing desperately, trying to get back to the safety of the harbor. Everyone made it back except one old man named John. He had almost reached the mouth of the harbor when a great wave came and dashed his small boat against a rock. His vessel was ruined. When he managed to swim over and pull himself up on a tiny ledge, hanging on for dear life. His friends saw what happened, but there was nothing that they could do because it was growing dark and the sea was already high. All they could do was wait. They built a fire, big bonfire on the shore, let it burn all night. Every once in a while, someone would throw his cap up in the air, hoping that old man John would see it. At last, dawn began to break. The winds began to die down a little bit, and the men were able to put their boats back in to see if they could find John. They found him, got him back to shore. When he had been by the fire and had time to warm up and given something to eat to kind of revive him, they asked him, well, what was it like being out there all night? Old John said, well, it was the longest night of my life. I made out pretty well at first, but then a big wave came along and flattened me out. I felt myself slipping. I was worn out. I was ready to give up. My old father went down at sea. I had decided my time had come. But just as I was ready to let go, I looked through the darkness and I saw somebody's cap go up in the air. I said to myself, if there's somebody who cares about old John enough to stay out on a night like this, I guess I'm not going to quit yet. Just then the winds seemed to ease up and I got a fresh hold and, well, here I am. That night, a banner was a cap being thrown up in the air over the waves. It's incredible how life-giving, how life-sustaining a banner can be, a visual up high to focus above everything else. It makes me think of what Jesus talked about with his followers. One time he told them, just as Moses was lifted up, or just as Moses lifted up the snake in the desert. You remember when the Israelites were in the wilderness, they came to a place where they had rebelled and they were snake bit. Moses cried out to God and he said, put the snake on your staff, which is still a medical symbol today. Everybody who looked at the snake on the staff was healed. Jesus here is saying the same thing. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. He would go on later to say, shortly before his crucifixion, that when I am lifted up, I will draw all people to myself. He's the banner. It's Jesus. Oh, I need to share one more prophecy with you about Jesus who resurrected from the dead. In fact, this prophecy was written some 7 centuries before Jesus was even born. Look what it says. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf and the lion and the yearling together. and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put his hand into the viper's nest. For they will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And the question is, when is this going to happen? Look what it says. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. The root of Jesse. You know what the root of Jesse is? That's Jesus. That's his line. Jesse was the father of David from the tribe of Judah. That's the line Jesus came through. Jesus stands as a banner for all peoples and all nations. The call is to rally to him. Jesus is our banner. And under him as our banner, the darkness is trampled. Weapons against us vanquished. They dissipate. They don't have any power. His every word accomplished. Nothing can stop the God of the promise. Jesus, our banner. We've got to sing that song.
For the walls to fall, 'cause I know a name that will bring them down. I've got a praise waking within my soul. I'm not ashamed to declare it now. Light of the world, trample the darkness. Nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished. Nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Prepare the way, the King of glory comes. Before his name, every fear must bow. Throw off your chains, Jesus destroyed them all. Up from the grave, he is with us now. Oh, light of the world, trample the darkness. Nothing can stop it. You are the God of the promise. Every word will be accomplished. Nothing can stop
Hey, I don't know what it's like in your corner of the world, but it looks like in our region of the country, we may be facing the second wave, if it hasn't already started, of this pandemic virus. And I'm wondering, are there some people that you know that could use some banners of communication, encouragement, hope? Since we are a people made for physical interaction, this distancing is definitely beginning to take its toll, and we've got to deal with that. Just a couple of weeks back, I met with my folks. They're in their 80s. We're trying to be cautious, but I kept my distance, and I sat in a lawn chair, and they sat in lawn chairs, and we were on their back patio in the shade of the morning, and I'm telling you, it absolutely fed my soul. Are there some people in your life that need that? Do you need that? Let's be attentive to one another. Look for ways to raise a banner in our circles. Oh, and by the way, have a banner day. Have a good week, everybody.